Hey, thanks for joining me for these DM tips for Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. This is chapter number 4, the Clifftop Observatory, and this is the conclusion of the starter set, the new starter set that is out at Target right now and will be at wide release soon. There'll be spoilers here, so if you're a player, come back after you play the adventure, let us know how it went. Authors for this one were James Wyatt, Sydney Adams, Mackenzie DeArmas, and Dan Dillon. And the adventure overall is for character levels 1 through 3, and this part of it's for character levels 3. So for session 3, let's look at some pacing. For the first hour, you can do character introductions, recap the Lost Wyrmling introduction that Runara shares with the characters if you did that at the end of the last session, so they have a good fresh reminder of what they're going to be doing this adventure. Hour 1 to 2 could be encounters on the way there. Then once you get there, the Kobold allies the party will run across when they get there. And then exploring, of course, the Clifftop Observatory. By the time they hit hour 2, they'll probably be getting interested in that higher tower, the 45-foot high tower, where Sparkrender they saw land. So they could go there, they could either battle Sparkrender or rescue Adron if they try to get through the hole in the wall, the rubble that's in the wall. So then hour 3, if they battle Sparkrender first and he flees and comes back, then it could be Sparkrender's ritual. If they battled Sparkrender and defeated him, then that'd be the end of the adventure. So it could run a little short if you don't have 2 battles with Sparkrender, but there's not much you can do to anticipate that, and if it does, you just have more time to enjoy the wrap-up for the starter set overall. There's some good music for this adventure by Tabletop Audio. Quiet Cove works as a good background music for the whole adventure. Then they also have specific songs, Myconid Colony, and Drowned Sailors, which we've played previously. So here's the Quiet Cove. So that works well, just as background sound during the whole adventure. Tabletop Audio's website is tabletopaudio.com, and here's where you can find the Drowned Sailors and the Myconid Colony. For the maps for this part of the adventure, of course you'll be able to get the maps from D&D Beyond when it comes out on D&D Beyond, but in the meantime, I had to take a picture with my camera and use that for the adventure. For the overland travel encounters, I grabbed this large map by Heroic Maps, and I'll put a link in the description below. That just is a good wild coastline for an island that you can use kind of generically for the overland encounters. And here is what that Black Whelk Bay looks like on Heroic Maps. Entry and drive-through RPG, Heroic Maps, Black Whelk Bay, Shipwreck. And it comes both with and without the ship out there in the ocean. And so I'll put a link to that, like I said, in the description below. I did some specific tokens for this part of the adventure. Let's look at just the whole adventure in total. So the party will come from the north. And as they're approaching the Clifftop Observatory, they'll see these spires of rock. They'll see that they could land on the island, but there's no bridge to cross over. They, of course, have the Moonstone Key that Runara gave them, and if they go up there and investigate those statues, there is a place they can insert the key, and when they do, it'll make a bridge across. Either way, as the party's approaching, they should have a chance to see Sparkrender, the blue dragon. And I described him as being about the size of a horse with wings, flying from the opposite direction that the party was approaching from, and then landing on the top of the 45-foot tower. So the party is shielded from him, and he doesn't see the party, but they know where he's at. So then, if they come up on the island and they investigate these statues, they will find there's a slot there they can insert the key that Runara gave them, and will create a bridge across to the island. The Rotundra, it does not have on the map the effigies that the kobolds are making, so it's a good idea to add that before the encounter if you can. And then, of course, you have the 2 bird kobolds, the 2 flying kobolds with all the sturges around them. Now, that many sturges will take down those 2 kobolds in no time. So, good idea maybe to give those sturges a 0 on their initiative roll, and the first chance the party has to interact, that'll give the party some chance to save those kobolds. I did not do that, and the kobolds went down in no time. Then, of course, this golden sculpture shows a comet that's approaching Toril. And if you have any players playing a character from Spelljammer, you can give them that knowledge and they can know what that comet is, being the King-Killer Star, as described in the adventure. Okay, then they can come over to this fortress-like rock here, the Kobold Camp, and they can fight more kobolds there. And then they can come over to the isolated study, and they can find the journal in the study that gives them a hint on how to get inside the tower, the 45-foot tower. Now, an observant party should notice there's no entry into the 45-foot tower, and there should be a room in there. They'll notice the rubble, and if they see that rubble, they might be able to use that to get through. Of course, if they talk to any of the kobolds, if they're friendly to the kobolds will tell them about Sparkrender capturing a dragon and holding it prisoner inside the tower. So if the party can get to Sparkrender, I mean, not Sparkrender, but Adron, then they have a quick ally in their fight against Sparkrender, and this will really help the encounter for them. Now, Sparkrender as written is kind of not very strong. At 52 hit points, you're going to need more hit points than that, I think, for a third level party. I doubled his hit points to 104, and that was still a little light. They, of course, had the other dragon helping them, so maybe if the other dragon's helping, you could bump it up even a little bit further. If you find out you went too far, then as the party's dealing damage, you could throw in some extra damage and weed it down back to a reasonable number of hit points as the party's fighting it, without them knowing that you're doing that. So that is the extent of the dungeon here, or the encounter areas. It's a fun little adventure. It's got some fun little knowledge things the party can find out, and the battle with Sparkrender's tough. A blue dragon breath weapon that's 4d10, that's real swingy. And furthermore, I multiplied the damage by 1.2, so it could do 32 points of fire lightning damage, into the teens to the 40s. It can really vary a lot. And of course, the party had the potion of lightning resistance, which they used when they went to fight the dragon. So you can use your judgment on how the party's coming at the dragon, how many hit points the dragon you want to give. 52, I think, is just way too low. You will find that doesn't work well. So these tokens that I made for Sparkrender here and Adron here, I will put these, or a link to these, in the description below, so you can grab those tokens that I made. Everything else is just generic tokens, so nothing special to grab there. There's one image from the adventure you can use. This one's a fun image for the party when they're fighting Sparkrender. It also gives them the feeling of the stained glass that the tower used to be made out of. You don't really get that feeling from the map, so you might want to highlight that, how beautiful the place was in the past to the party. Then for knowledge that the party can have, I'll put these knowledge checks down below, but as they're approaching, they could spot like the effects of lightning breath with a nature check. When they look at this sculpture, like I said, if you have a person that's a Spelljammer character, you might give them this knowledge that it's suggesting the comet will pass soon, and they might know what the name of the comet is. Then, of course, if they're on this island, they could notice the small arcane ruin engraved on the keyhole in the journal's lock before they trip it, and they can find the loose brick in the northwest wall of that tower. And I just do those with these little macro buttons. So here is the strange twisted protrusions. Here is the comet, the journal, finding the loose stone, and that is the end of it. So that's the end of the starter set. I hope you have a good time running it. Drop back in here and let me know how it went for you. I think it was pretty fun overall. It's definitely much shorter than the first starter adventure. First starter adventure took me about 6 full 4-hour sessions to run. This one took me 3 sessions of about 2 to 3 hours. All right, thank you, and I will see you later.